Miniatures have become fascinating to people. Miniatures are becoming increasingly important in people's lives and how they interact with each other, in part because our lives are more and more out of control. And when working with miniatures, you're able to exert control. You're able to look at your entire world on one palette, on one table.
Model making and what we do, there are various forms of model making. You know, we go from the guys who do it as a hobby. You know, they build model airplanes, or they build model railroads. You know, model ships, whatever that may be. Up to the guys who do it as a profession. I come from an architectural model making background. That's what I've been doing for the last 20, 30 years.
Previously, I was working at an architectural firm in Manhattan. And I decided that I wanted to work at a different scale, at a smaller scale, instead of high-rise residential buildings.
Gulliver's Gate's been built in 8 model shops in 6 different countries. Each region of the model was built by people who live and work in that region every day.
We have set designers, we have architects, model makers, visual effects guys. And so a project like this,
it's mostly a whole bunch of collaborating.
Gulliver's Gate was basically started about 5 years ago, 5 years before we opened in May. And in that time, the first 3 years was a lot about getting the business together, but then also doing a lot of research, looking at model makers and also subjects around the world, basically pulling the team together.
There's about $25 million worth of models at work on the floor there. In addition to that, construction, leases, lawyers, things like that, the entire project budget was about $40 million.
The model makers who are working for us, say in China or in Israel or in Italy, they actually designed the models and did the research for a lot of the buildings. We could set the tone, and we had sign off on what buildings we wanted, and we could make suggestions of what buildings we wanted, but those guys basically put those design packages together for us.
We start you in New York, where we show you some of the great buildings and scenes of New York City, and then continue on the North American continent, where we show you a great collage of New England, and then it's up to Niagara Falls to see the falls cascading over in Canada. We then walk through the British Isles and Europe, showing you some of the greatest hits of both Italy, Greece, Rome, France, Germany, and Northern Europe. Then it's off to St. Petersburg, Russia, and Moscow and Siberia, and a quick turn to the right takes you to what we call our Cultures Hall, where you see some of the great architecture of Asia, Latin America, and of the Mideast. As the cherry on the top of the sundae, we take you through our model airport, which shows you model planes in flight and really gives you the feeling of watching these tiny little planes take off and go into the wild blue yonder.
We started design on the airport around about July last year. We had no designs for the interior of the building. We had a master plan and we knew what we wanted to show, but then it was down to our guys. They went looking at real world examples of airports.
And take a parametrically designed building and turn it into something that we could work with at a smaller scale, and that the resolution would still come through in the buildings. So once I model it 3D, we'll laser cut and do basic shop work and create the building. And then, you know, painting and distressing, and then adding furniture and bringing it to life with small narratives of figurines and everything.
At the point now where we actually have aircraft that are able to taxi, take off, land, and do everything you would hope that an airplane would do. There's still an awful lot more to do.
Airplanes are running on faller wire, and when we constructed the table, a lot of parts, or a lot of things were added to the table, like layers of paint and stuff, and so as the airplane is taxiing around and there are pushbacks and everything, there are moments that we have like some defects that we have to go in and edit and fix. So we constantly are working on the table to, make sure all the airplanes are running smoothly and stuff. So she's pulling up defective wire and replacing it and patching up the table and making it look as good as new.
The technology at Gulliver's Gate is one of the great stories that we love to talk about.
They give us a lot of tools. With that, we have to put a lot more detail into the models.
It's crazy. At one point, we're going to, expose some parts of the table so that people can look and see and understand that it's beautiful artwork, of course, but there is a ton of technology that goes into it.
Because Gulliver's Gate is as much about showing you the world, but it's also showing you how our world works. The science, technology, engineering, and math that underpin everything we do. We've got a scanner that's called the Cobra scanner, and it's not dangerous. There are over 128 digital SLR cameras inside of there, and it takes your photo in a 500th of a second, and then uses a software called photogrammetry, which renders that out in 3D, and you can be printed and placed in anywhere in the world. On top of that, you can have a 3D figurine sent home so that when you get, a typically sized person can be printed out to be just this big. It's really fantastic.
I think a lot of people don't think about miniature art, as you say, a great deal, but I think when they walk in here, they're completely blown away. It is really gratifying.
It's one of the more unique pieces of art because it really allows you to change your perspective. This almost like God's eye view that you couldn't normally get in any other kind of artwork.
But when they leave here, maybe it will inspire them to actually have a go themselves, helping their children with their next science fair project or their next art project.
We spend so many hours working here, and to see a kid gasp is just like, that's awesome. We're making something that is really meaningful and that people really connect with, and it's fantastic.